The film which you've just seen is a small glimpse into the life of my father, Mark Prophet, who founded the Summit Lighthouse at the direction of beloved El Moria and 6 other Ascended Masters on August 7, 1958. To bring us the teachings of the Ascended Masters and to pave the way for the founding of this Church Universal and Triumphant were the crowning achievements of his life. It's amazing how just a few brief images can capture the essence of his presence, power, and the love that he expressed throughout his ministry. It is the image and record of the teachings of the Masters, epitomized in the lives and works of my mother and father, that are the ties that have bound this movement together. Pearls of wisdom, sent weekly without fail since 1958. Books, published lovingly as compilations of teaching. Audio tapes, at first monthly, then more often, offered through Linello's Library of Listening Grace. The videotapes themselves. All these comprise the core of the legacy of the anointed messengers of the Ascended Masters, Mark and Elizabeth Prophet. This teaching is our precious gift to the future, to St. Germain's golden age of Aquarius. I cannot imagine a more historically significant body of knowledge. We, the keepers of the flame, have been given a great gift and a great responsibility. Ours is to preserve this teaching, this body of knowledge, and be assured that it reaches our heirs intact. I am here tonight to enlist your financial support to enable us to complete the process of preparing these teachings to be preserved for the next 2,000 years. The preservation of knowledge dates back to ancient times. 2,000 years ago, the Essene community flourished. Here in Qumran, the Essenes led a rigid and disciplined life, and unremittingly studied the Torah. In their day, Julius Caesar and the Romans destroyed most of the Library of Alexandria, which contained much of the literature of the known world. Perhaps to protect their teachings from a similar fate, the Essenes hid in these caves a vast collection of religious and theological documents known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Their survival into the 20th century provides the oldest known manuscripts of the Old Testament. Even today, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormon Church, places a high priority on the preservation of their historical documents. Treasured scripture and genealogical records are stored in several vaults larger than football fields, carved out of a granite mountain east of Salt Lake City. These vaults can be temperature and humidity controlled and are expected to provide the maximum storage life physically possible for their valuable contents. What about the teachings of the Ascended Masters? Will they endure for 2 millennia, as did the Dead Sea Scrolls? Or will they perish like the Library of Alexandria? Or will the ravages of time consign them to a slow death, as paper crumbles and audio and video tapes become unplayable? This, in large part, may be up to you.
And so re-embodiment is not a process which is too disturbing. It was very carefully taught by Christ to his disciples. And he told them, speaking of John the Baptist, he said there was none greater that was born of women. But he said the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he.
Take, for example, our audio recordings, which include fascinating teachings such as this lecture, as well as every recorded dictation through my father and mother from 1958 to 1973. Blank audio tape stock in those years used an inferior manufacturing process. Magnetic tape consists of 3 components. The first is a clear plastic film. The second is iron oxide or common rust. The third and most important is a binder which holds the first 2 elements together. Until the mid-1970s, this binder was very vulnerable to deterioration over time. This means that any tapes recorded before the mid-1970s have now become unstable. They can only be played 1 or 2 times before the iron oxide begins separating from the clear plastic film base. This problem is not unique to our organization, but is widespread in the recording industry. In fact, a large segment of that industry today is engaged in restoring old jazz and rock and roll studio session tapes. Don't the tapes of the master's teachings deserve at least the same treatment? If these tapes are not transferred to new tape in a few years, the teachings they contain will be lost forever. We have initiated this transfer and restoration and have completed nearly half. We are confident that 98 to 99% of this material can eventually be saved. At the present time, we have stopped the process for lack of funds. Today's quality tape stock is extremely expensive, around $20 per hour. We have thousands of hours of dictations and teachings still in need of restoration. Let's visit the magnetic tape archives of our church. Archivist Michael McKeever will give us a first-hand perspective on our restoration needs.
This is a part of the audiovisual archives. The number of tapes in here does seem endless. Why, we have over 9,000 audio tapes alone that are in need of restoration and duplication. Many of our early tapes, dating back to 1956, were recorded onto magnetic tape that at the time was state-of-the-art. Over the years, however, many of these tapes have degraded significantly. Some of them can only be played once or twice before they disintegrate and are lost. Many of these early recordings also do not have complete notes as to their contents. Some are not labeled at all. Many of these tapes remain to be painstakingly reviewed to see if they contain valuable teachings or if in some cases they're just blank. We do not even know what precious teachings will be lost if we do not act to preserve them. Just as an example, I found 6 dictations for which we had no transcript or record on unmarked or poorly marked reels. Many other tapes have only one existing copy, and for these we need to make protection copies. Let's listen to one of these historic tapes.
Hail, legions of heaven. Hail, ascended masters. Hail, children of earth yearning to breathe the air of freedom. I, Michael, Lord of the archangels, charge forth the radiance of my presence into the dawn of this new activity, that the pulsations of protection shall be very firmly established, for the simple reason that the light of God that never fails cannot fail. And because it is fixed by cosmic law that the light of God cannot fail, and because it shall be the action of this activity to externalize the beautiful light of charity and love itself, it is impossible that it shall fail in any way.
That excerpt was a dictation by Archangel Michael from one of the 7 founding dictations of the Summit Lighthouse, given on August 7, 1958. This is just one example of many great tapes in need of restoration. Through this ongoing project, my understanding of the life and work of the messengers has grown tremendously. I feel a new and more personal contact with their early trials and tribulations experienced in the founding of the organization. It gives me a sense of perspective of what we're going through now and how Lanello appreciates what his Chelas and Moria's Chelas are going through, and that he is definitely right by our side. Our goal is to take these precious tapes and make high-quality copies onto the new polyester audio tape. These new copies can be expected to last a minimum of 50 years. We have all the equipment needed to complete this project, and all that we need is the actual audio tape. Because of the many precious hours of material that we have, the cost of material for this project would be $214,255.
Our video library from the years of 1974 through 1979 contains the only visual record of Sunday sermons and dictations, Summit University instruction, and quarterly conferences from that time period. This is the heart of my mother's early ministry during the era just following the ascension of my father. Videotape in that time period had the same problems with its binder that audio tape had from 1958 to 1973. The tape actually sticks to itself and is rendered worthless in the same manner as our vintage audio tapes. Immediate duplication of these tapes is necessary to save the teachings that they contain. Fortunately, I am pleased to tell you that this process is well underway, and we believe that at least 75 to 80% of this priceless material can be salvaged. Let's see a short segment from beloved Alpha's dictation, given July 5th, 1975.
I come to announce the second death of the fallen one, and the judgment of that one known as Lucifer. And I impress upon all mater the record of the judgment of the one who has rebelled against the law of the fiery core of life. Let it be known by proclamation of Alpha and Omega, sent and signified by our hand, delivered unto all the nations and the starry bodies and the life waves, that the fallen one, as identity, as energy, as consciousness, has passed through the fires of Alpha and Omega, whose flaming reality consumes all that is in rebellion against the one source, Almighty God. And many who followed the fallen one have also passed through the judgment hall of the God star Sirius.
Many problems surface in trying to restore these tapes. Our audio-video department is one of the few facilities left in the entire world that has the machines able to play these kinds of tapes. In fact, when we called Los Angeles to try and get some spare parts, the people at Sony Corporation were shocked that we still had any of these kinds of machines that worked. 20% of the time when we play the tape itself becomes so sticky that the machine won't even play it. And when we can get the machine to play, the oxide that carries the recorded picture and sound actually becomes damaged in the process. To remedy the situation, we're transferring all the old tapes onto the kind of video cassettes that are universally used today. We have also purchased a sophisticated piece of equipment that allows us to make these copies. But now all we need is the tape. We can expect 25 to 50 years of use from these newly generated copies, and the total tape cost for this restoration project will be $59,116.
Another matter of great concern to us are our more recent videotapes. Most of our current edited masters, including such classics as The Coming Revolution, The Everlasting Gospel Hour, and Summit University Forum, are in need of duplication. Aside from what we send out to you, we often only have 1 or 2 copies, duplicating them to order. For long-term storage, we plan to keep multiple copies in multiple locations to ensure survival. The cost of making these copies will be $47,493. Our movement is fueled by the Word. This Word has given us a wealth of printed material, books, pearls of wisdom, keepers' lessons, as well as hundreds of unpublished transcripts. Unfortunately, modern paper is only designed to last 25 to 50 years. Most papers manufactured in the recent past contain acid, and in time, the acid literally dissolves the paper into dust. The Library of Congress has recognized this fact and has mounted a massive program to preserve the knowledge contained within its shelves. This masterpiece of St. Germain's messenger Godfrey Ray King, entitled The Magic Presence, is nearly crumbling today in 1989. It was published in 1935. This is hardly encouraging to us, since many of our books could be in similar condition by the year 2040 or before. I would like to introduce you to Teresa Huey, who heads the graphics department of the church's publishing arm, the Summit Lighthouse. She is responsible for the preservation of our printed material.
In 1957, El Morya called Mark Prophet to Washington, D.C. to found the Summit Lighthouse for the purpose of publishing the teachings of the Ascended Masters. Since then, we have produced thousands of printed publications, magnificent books, weekly pearls of wisdom, keepers of the flame lessons, pamphlets, booklets, newsletters, lithographs, posters, announcements, letters, and magazines. In addition to what has been published, right now in our files, and it is growing every day, we have 200,000 pages of transcribed lectures, dictations, and teachings that have not yet been published. Unfortunately, all of this material is printed and typed on modern papers which contain acids that in time will destroy the paper and the irreplaceable teachings contained upon them. To preserve these invaluable teachings, we have two plans of attack. First, we plan to minimize the problem of acid by using a deacidifier when possible and using long-term storage techniques which should minimize deterioration. A deacidifier neutralizes the harmful acids which cause paper to deteriorate and crumble. Fortunately, many of our books published recently are printed on acid-free archival papers which are designed to last hundreds of years and longer if stored properly. Second, we would like to put all of the published and unpublished teachings onto microfilm. Microfilming is a process whereby documents are photographically reduced in size and recorded onto a roll of film. The rolls of film can be cut, made into 4 by 6 inch sheets of up to 70 pages of material, jacketed and labeled. Microfilm in sheets is called microfiche. Microfiche is compact, economical, and is known to be long-lasting. For instance, converting 1,000 pages of 8.5 by 11 inch transcripts to microfiche only costs $19. Microfiche can last hundreds of years and longer if stored properly. To deacidify, archive, microfilm, and store all the precious published and unpublished written works of our beloved messengers will cost $25,000.
St. Germain dictating through my father, the images of our first family home, which also served as church headquarters. Mother stumping in Africa and England. These are just some of the priceless memories we have of our beloved messengers recorded on motion picture film. This film has undergone serious shrinkage, and some of it is in the process of permanent decay. Film in this state may be impossible to view or duplicate in just a few years. Tom Miller, one of our first staff members, brought his degree in cinematography to the Summit Lighthouse in 1964. His talents include filmmaking, musical composition, and more recently computer art and animation. He is largely responsible for having photographed most of the early film footage in our archives. He produced the first version of the film on my father you've just seen.
Can you imagine a more incredible and exciting job than filming the messengers of the Great White Brotherhood? Well, as I look back, I can tell you it was quite a challenge to try to keep up with two mercurial messengers, and especially with an antiquated 16mm camera that had 7 different things to adjust just to get one shot. So sometimes the best footage was on a Super 8mm system, which was faster and easier to use. And we do have some really wonderful material on Mark there which we'd like to preserve. Linello said he would radiate his presence through any picture of himself, so we're grateful for anything we have, every last frame, and that's why we've been going through it so carefully. All of our film, 8mm as well as 16mm, has undergone varying degrees of shrinkage because of its age. The oldest of the films, mainly Mark's footage, is in an irreversible process of decay and decomposition. We need to take this footage and duplicate it immediately to a newly developed polyester film which will not decay or decompose and has a very low rate of shrinkage. This film can last 300 years or more. I'd like to show you a section from one of our 8mm reels that doesn't exist anywhere else and will not be preserved without your help. These are some shots from the Holy Land Tour in 1972. Mark spent much of his time while we were traveling preaching to us and expounding on the teachings of the Masters. Here we are in the Sea of Galilee, and we were traveling in this case with other tourists. Mark actually looks like Saladin here. The difference between the quality you're seeing now and restored film is the difference between night and day. When we make a professional transfer of this footage, not only will all this flickering be removed, but the film will be thoroughly clean, scratches will be eliminated, and the color will be corrected. Now we're at La Tourelle, and here are the two messengers greeting the people, and of course they both love this opportunity to talk with people and to say hi. There's Sean. Little Aaron. And this is Tanya's first birthday, January 15th, 1973, just about a month before Mark's ascension. So these are some of the very last moving pictures that we have of him. These reels and many other rolls of film need to be restored and duplicated. Since modern film can last up to 300 years or more, we would like to restore and duplicate our entire film library. We actually have about 115,000 feet of film. That's approximately 53 hours or 22 miles of film. To preserve this film, it will cost $2.50 per foot, resulting in a price tag of $287,500. Considering all our needs of the hour, we feel that it would be more appropriate to choose just the highlights from the 31-year history of our organization, and this will cost about $125,000. Obviously, we would prefer to save everything we have, as it is all very important and very precious footage.
Thousands of still photographs and slides trace the history of the Summit Lighthouse and of Church Universal and Triumphant. These slides and photographs are mounted on acidic paper mats and stored in reactive plastic protectors. These materials, although commonly used, are inadequate for long-term archival storage. If the acid paper doesn't ruin the pictures, the plastic protectors will.
We have the most precious library of photographs and slides of the messengers and the activities since the very early years of the organization. Plus, we have priceless photograph albums and scrapbooks Mark and Mother put together during their childhood and early youth. Unfortunately, many of our slides are in glass mounts and non-archival plastic protectors. Both the glass mounts and the protectors are insufficient for long-term storage. The glass mounts will be replaced with new plastic ones, and the plastic protectors will be replaced with high-grade polypropylene archival quality protectors. Many of the original photographs and albums in our library are mounted on acid papers. Some have already begun to disintegrate. These must be rephotographed, so we have negatives and duplicate copies of the originals. Then the originals, negatives, and duplicate photographs will be thoroughly cleaned and preserved in polypropylene protectors. The storage methods we are employing incorporate the most up-to-date standards for archiving around the world. Before my time is up tonight, I'd like to show you some very special slides of Mark and Mother. These have never been seen by our membership. That is just a peek into the vast visual record of our movement. The cost for photographing, duplicating, mounting, cleaning, and storing these irreplaceable pictures will be $20,000.
It is easy to see that in their current state, the physical record of the teachings of the Ascended Masters will not stand the test of time. The Board of Directors of this church has examined in minute detail what it will take to preserve these teachings. We have concluded that the preservation cannot be completed without financial help from our members. We are therefore appealing to you to assist us with your generous financial contribution. As the necessary funds come in, Mother would like the restoration and duplication to occur simultaneously in each of the following areas: audio tapes, videotapes, the printed word, photographs, and motion picture film. The amount of preservation and restoration work will depend on the amount of financial assistance that's received. The projects will be started and completed only if the necessary funds are available. I think all of us can agree that these tasks are vital. Uncertain times are ahead of us, and we must take the necessary steps to protect and preserve the teaching in all of its forms, whether it be the printed word, audio and video tapes, motion picture film, or still photographs. Because the release and distribution of the physical teachings of the Masters, specifically the audio and video tapes, have depended on a physical base of industry and technology, we must not only preserve these teachings themselves, but also the means of reproduction. This, in and of itself, is a complicated and daunting task. We must not, however, underestimate Saint Germain. He has released this technology to the world once, and he can certainly do it again if it were to be destroyed by war. We must maintain the thread of the sound and visual recordings, so that in the golden age to come, the many can receive the blessings that until now have been reserved for the few. Most of you are aware that we are building underground fallout shelters at the ranch. These are not only for the protection of the lives of those who form our community, but for the protection of the Word. I would like to share with you now some footage of the ongoing construction. Work began in the heart of the inner retreat, early in the summer of '89. Today, most of you would not recognize the heart. It has become a beehive of activity and the focus of our community attention. Deep excavations have been made in the meadows across from the conference site, adjacent to the large washout area that existed there. Our shelters are in the process of being installed. Dedicated men and women are laboring long hours to see to it that we complete these projects this fall. This is where we intend to protect and preserve not only our community, but the teachings themselves should a war occur. The site of numerous landmark dictations, as well as the revered chalice of Elohim, the heart of the inner retreat, has been sanctified by Almighty God, and is, without a doubt, the place prepared for the protection of the Word and the work of the Lord. This task could be compared to the labors of Hercules. We have no way to predict the outcome of events, or to know what changed world we will inherit. We must trust in the word of the hierarchy, knowing that we have been commissioned in this work for a divine purpose. We have received the prophecy in recent years, both from the Knight Commander Saint Germain and from beloved El Morya, that we can expect a nuclear war to occur sometime in the near future. El Morya has stated that all is in flux after October 2nd, 1989, and that we must be prepared for any eventuality. In his 31st anniversary address on August 8, 1989, Morya reiterated his mandate for our preparation for physical survival. We have taken this very seriously, and I know all of you have too. We consider this mandate to cover not only the survival of ourselves, but of equal importance, the survival of our teachings. Therefore, we plan to take the physical records, the books, the tapes, and the historical photographs underground with us, should it ever become necessary. We have designated a portion of the underground structures you see under construction for storage of these materials. In fact, we see ourselves in this community in much the same light as the Essenes. We are devoted to the Word above all else, and we will see to it that it survives. You can see that we have many needs at the ranch to fulfill the mandate of the Master. I would ask you to keep these images in your heart and to consider the ways in which you are able to help us, both by your fiery calls to the Masters and with financial assistance. We are facing unprecedented opposition as the light intensifies and enrages the powers of darkness. Your continuing prayers and decrees are absolutely essential. We must redouble our efforts to see that we do not fail our most beloved Guru. In contemplating your support of these projects, Mother wants all of you to know that first and foremost, you are to fulfill Saint Germain's requirement for survival, for your food and for everything you might need for the future. Nevertheless, we have a crying need for your sponsorship in this ongoing work for the saving of our teachings. Let's review the costs for each aspect of this project. The cost of preserving and protecting our audio tapes will be a total of $214,255. To date, we have spent $53,604. We still need $160,651 to complete the process. Black and white videotape restoration is almost complete. Out of a total budget of $59,116, we have spent $50,503, leaving us with a need of $8,613 to purchase the remaining tape. For duplicating our published videotapes, we have spent $17,841, and the remaining cost is $29,652. The total for published videotapes will be $47,493. Archiving the printed word will cost $25,000. We have spent $3,883 on preliminary supplies. We need $21,117 to begin this work in earnest. Preserving the highlights of our motion picture film will cost $125,000. Preparatory work has resulted in the expenditure of $7,687. We need $117,313 for transfers, film stock, laboratory fees, and transportation. Still photograph duplication is well underway. We have spent $8,503 out of a $20,000 total. We must receive $11,497 toward this project to ensure its completion. The total cost of saving our teachings is $490,864. To date, we have spent a total of $142,021. We need contributions in the amount of $348,843 to allow us to move forward. This does not include the cost of underground storage, which is $244,570. This figure was calculated from the total cost of all line items in the construction budget, multiplied by the percentage of this facility designated for archive use. Though construction is well underway, it will not be completed to the necessary standards for archival storage without the receipt of these funds. The grand total needed not only to protect and preserve the physical materials that contain the teachings, but also to store them safely underground will be $593,413. We have a diligent staff. We have state-of-the-art equipment, but what we need are the funds to buy the supplies needed to complete these projects. We are ready to perform this labor of love with as much dedication as the monks in the scriptoriums, patiently hand-copying ancient manuscripts. But in many cases, we have simply run out of materials and cannot purchase more without jeopardizing the financial stability of our community. Take some time out now to think about what you can do to help prepare our teachings to survive the test of time. Remember, like the Essenes, we want to make sure that for the next 2,000 years, those coming after us may have the tremendous benefit of the teachings of the Great White Brotherhood. If you are able, write your check now to Church Universal and Triumphant, Box A, Corwin Springs, Montana, 59021. In the memo section of your check, write Save Our Teachings. Some of you will receive this classic print of my father and mother. This picture has never been released to the public and is available only to those who support this project with a contribution of $100 or more. However, any contribution will be greatly appreciated. The preservation of the word and work of our Lord is one of the most important projects we all have to fulfill. Bound by a common purpose and love, together we can make this a reality.